Welcome, everyone, to What Do You Do with a BA in Theater, presented by Dallas Summer Musical's Education and Community Partnerships Department. My name is Johnson, and I will be your host for this series. Welcome back, everybody. We have a wonderful guest today. Courtney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Courtney Mentzel, and I am a actor, puppeteer, collaborator. Currently, I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I'm in grad school at Brooklyn College for my MFA in acting, and I graduated from Hardin-Simmons University with my BFA in acting in 2015.
You cut off in the last part. Acting in
I graduated from Hardin-Simmons with my BFA in acting in 2015.
2015. Gotcha. So what made you choose Hardin-Simmons, and what was that what was that program like when you were there?
Yeah, it was actually not even on my radar until April of my senior year, and I'm about as type A and perfectionist as you can be. So not knowing when I was in high school where I was going was terrifying. And so it just kind of popped up that they were starting a BFA program, and that's the degree I wanted, and auditioned, got accepted. And it's a liberal arts university, so they have you do all the core stuff, but with BFA specifically, it's we had a lot more credits in our major as well. And so most of my classes were in acting, but we had to take costuming and lighting, and we directed. So I took directing 1 and directed a 1 act, and then had directing 2 as part of my major, and theater history, modern drama, all those things. So it was super well-rounded, and at the time I was there, it was a small program. So if we weren't on the stage, we were behind the scenes. So I was very fortunate to get 4 years being on stage, and having that stage time in a smaller university. It may not have had all the funding in the world, but the training was great, and my artistic director and mentor taught me everything I knew. It was just super well-rounded and super rigorous, and for me that was really great, because I'm always just keep me busy and let me be doing things.
What was that audition process like? And looking back, is there anything that you wish you knew back then before you started that audition process?
Probably how to pick a monologue that's appropriate. Because I remember choosing, I think my contemporary comedic monologue was fine, but for some reason I just had in the idea that I needed to do Tamara from Titus Andronicus, and now looking back, I'm just why? Why would I think that was appropriate age-wise? And so just because I feel sometimes in high school you're just not given that direction of hey, fit to your age, and you can go the gamut in your age. So I just remember when I think about auditioning for university when I was going into undergrad, it's gosh, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, I resonate with that, because my first college audition, I did Titus from Titus. The whole throat slitting scene, in front of all of the acting 4 students and my eventual mentor, and it was a fun experience. But then afterwards, they're never do that again, and here's why. Because you're not a 70-something-year-old war general.
Yeah,
you won't.
I think they were oh, she has something. Okay, we can work with that.
Yeah. It's always funny, what people pick right out of high school. But yeah, knowing that little kernel of knowledge, oh, hey, pick something in my age range. Will really help.
Super helpful, because it's we know like like choosing contemporary and like a classical, like that difference, we know it's really easy to figure out like comedic or dramatic, but like I feel like age is like the missing component they don't like you don't think about when you're in high school, and I didn't.
Because you're playing everything. You're playing old people, people, like that's it. And then when you're in the real world, you can't. So yeah. So after college, what did you do before going to grad school?
Yeah, so I came back. I was originally from Midlothian, which is just south of Dallas. So I went to Abilene for 4 years, and then I knew like I was going to stay in Texas, and it's like, oh, you kind of, if you want a career in the arts, there's like Austin, Houston, Dallas, and Dallas was always home. And I hated the weather in Houston, and like love Austin to visit, but don't want to live there. So, so like Dallas just made the most sense, and like a lot of my friends were also moving. And so I spent my spring semester of my senior year like driving back and forth auditioning, because I was like, I want to throw myself in. And I had done a internship with Shakespeare Dallas the previous summer going into my senior year. So like started making connections and like trying to get my foot in the door. And so came to Dallas and stayed for 4 years, and like it will always be home, and like the community, I miss it every day. And I miss all of you guys so much. But yeah, like Dallas just, it was really welcoming, and I think what it has going for it is a lot of initiative now being put on the local artists and the local playwrights. And then I feel like in combination of that, it's very supportive and welcoming of new artists. And new people like coming out of undergrad. It's like, what are we gonna do? And like Dallas is here going, come here, like come with me. And you blink and a new theater company has formed. And it's exciting because people just want to do exciting things, and whether that theater company stays around or doesn't, like a new one's gonna come up. And I think that's really exciting because there's always something to be doing.
For sure. Yeah, Dallas is a really great combination of like awesome starting place, but also can be an end goal if you want it to be. Like it has potential for everything, which I love personally as somebody who might stay here for longer than I originally anticipated. I know I moved here with the goal of like 3 to 5 years max. And now I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to unroot all of these roots I've planted. Like,
it was definitely like hard coming to grad school, like, but it's kind of, I knew in undergrad I wanted to. And like, for me, New York was always like, oh, I want to live there for an extended amount of my life. But it's also like, I want to do regional theater. I want to come back to Dallas and do a show. Of course I do. But yeah, like Dallas is just so great, and like was so welcoming and so beneficial and fruitful for me.
So when in your career did you start identifying as a puppeteer, and how did that come about?
Well, that like actually was my first show in Dallas. So I did Avenue Q was the first show I got cast in up at Lakeside Community Theater in the Colony. I was like, where is it? So I got cast in Avenue Q and like had not done puppetry, had only seen like a few shows with puppetry at that point. And then they brought in a puppeteer named Pick Smith, and he taught us like a full 2-day workshop, and then like provided the practice puppets that we used during rehearsal, and actually had the full set of puppets we used for the performance. And then it was just like this bug that bit me, and I was like, oh my God, I love puppets so much. And now it's just kind of turned into like, every time I'm in a project, I'm kind of like, how can I put a puppet in this? Like, do you need puppets? Great. Let's put a puppet in this. And so like, sometimes I'll like actively seek out shows that I see that are going to have puppetry. But then sometimes I've wound it up in projects and they're like, oh, this is going to be a puppet. And I was like, of course it is. Like, let's go.
Awesome.
But yeah, like, I think it's an incredible art form in the bigger art form of theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you were auditioning and doing shows, did you have like a day job or like quote unquote muggle job to like keep you afloat while you're doing all that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, like love Dallas, but also it's hard to make a living purely as an artist. But I was fortunate, like I worked for my first 2 years, I worked at a gym. Like I worked the 6 a.m. to noon shift. It was awful. I took a lot of naps in the afternoon. But it like was flexible, and I did some children's theater shows that I wouldn't have been able to if I had a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I went and worked for AMP Creative, which is a creative boutique agency and media production company. And so I started out there as an assistant and like kept that role, but was added to be their community manager and handle all their social media and like the scheduling and writing copy. And also just like I was the yes and role of like, yes, what can I do for you? But like that was great, and they were also super flexible. Like they're in the industry and the world, so like, they understood like when I would have to go audition, or like, hey, can I adjust my schedule because I want a little bit more time for rehearsal, so I just won't take my lunch, or like I'll work through lunch and use that hour at the end of the day. So it was like super great, and I had a lot of opportunity there that I wouldn't have had. And actually like has landed me jobs that are keeping me afloat right now. Because like of the skill sets I learned, like social media, I'm a personal assistant now. So like I do social media for a voiceover artist, and I'm able to do that remotely. And thankfully like social media is very much still a thing, right now. And so like I'm fortunate in a lot of ways that like because of each of those jobs and that skill set, it allowed me to like be qualified to do what I'm doing and still support myself.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that you took that knowledge that you gained from that job and like carried it through. Because I think there's a lot to learn from those like day jobs that you do every day, whether it's stuff that you can use on stage or just stuff that you can roll over into the next job that keeps you afloat. You're always learning. Yeah, exactly. So before we wrap up, Courtney, I've been asking everybody if they could go back to their high school selves and give them a piece of advice. What would that advice be?
Oh gosh, that's a lot. I like to think about it and I'm like, that's not that long ago. I was just in high school. And then you like do the math and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's almost our 10-year reunion, and that feels weird and not. I'm like, no, I just graduated. I think stick up for myself, because in high school, like I ended like I wasn't always the one as vocal like to my friend group, like when things would upset me, or like I would be mad, but I would just take it. And I think like sticking up for who I am and like how am I feeling, what I'm feeling, and like express that rather than just like take it and be like, oh, just brush it off. It's like, no, it's okay. Like stick up for yourself.
Definitely. I think that's super important, especially when it comes to like, I think it really helps with like confidence levels too, being able to know who you are and know like that right and wrong, and be able to vocalize that and say that for others.
Like keep going with that and like continue to be your own advocate. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really good advice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. This has been wonderful. I'm so glad we got to catch up again, and I'm excited to like know like more bits and pieces of like how you came to be before like I knew you. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Best of luck in grad school with all of this happening. I hope the fall semester is a lot more peaceful than the spring was.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
plans are in place.
That's
Make that more beneficial. And like, hey, most of the stuff's going to be online. So like any of my friends can see it. So I'm like, find the positives.
Yeah, that's good. Basically like creating your reel right there if you ever want to do film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and for watching. If you have any questions or comments, send us an email. We are happy to help you here. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and have a wonderful day.